Welcome. It is no accident that you have found your way to the Release the Genie podcast. What would you do with 3 wishes? And what if you discovered that you are in fact that very genie that could grant them? Well, join us now as we discover who our next genie is as we listen in and learn the stories of triumph, inspiration, and passion with some very special guests. And now, without further delay, your host of the Release the Genie podcast, Mr. Paul Rogers.
That's so much better. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. I am your host, Paul Rogers, and welcome to another episode of Release the Genie. I have got a wonderful guest here today, the wonderful Jackie Lapin. Where do I start? Well, this lady, believe it or not, I spent 35, 40 years in media. She kind of doesn't look old enough for that to happen, but she tells me it's true. So, hey, I've got to believe her. She has got this fantastic site called Speaker Tunities, where she helps authors and speakers find opportunities to speak, whether it be in TV and radio, summits, cities, and a TEDx directory. So for everything you need speaker-wise, this is the person to see. So welcome, Jackie, to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I'm delighted to be here, and I appreciate that very wonderful welcome.
I kind of set myself a challenge to try and make you blush, so we'll to see if that worked afterwards. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, my story starts back when I was 11 years old, and I decided I wanted to be a sports writer because I married my love of the Dodgers with my love of writing. And there were no women sports writers at that time. That does tell you how old I am. And so by the time I was 20, I was at the Detroit Free Press. At 21, I was at the Associated Press and on the front pages of the LA Times. And 22, I was at the Washington Post. And in between that, I co-hosted Dodger Dugout on Channel 11 here in Los Angeles. So I went from there to having one of the largest sports special events and cable TV PR agencies in America for over 20 years with a world-class client list. And the last thing I did, everybody loves, I launched the worldwide poker boom with the World Poker Tour. Got everybody watching poker on television. I played in a big sandbox for a very long time. At the end of that period, I realized the media had changed and it had really gone to social media, which was where I wasn't going. And I wanted to, and I wrote 2 books in personal growth, The Art of Conscious Creation and Practical Conscious Creation, Daily Techniques to Manifest Your Desires. Both of these are really different in the manifesting space. And they were very successful, but I put together radio tours for them. And I built a list of about 750 radios, broadcast and internet. Nobody was doing that at that time. So I thought to myself, well, if I can use this, then other people can do that. And I realized that my heart was really with the people in the world that are making it a better place, improving one's life, one's business, or the planet. And so that's when I rebranded my company, Conscious Media Relations, and started doing radio podcast tours, which we still do today, where we reach 9,000 radio shows for an author and book a minimum of 30 guaranteed interviews. So about 5 years ago, some of my clients started to come to me and say, well, can you book me for speaking engagements? And I said, no, I don't want to do that, but I know where they are. Why don't I just tell you? And that's how Speaker Tunity was born, the other half of my company. And Speaker Tunity, as you were saying, is a speaker and leader resource company. And that's where we provide direct leads so that people can book themselves if they have a message to deliver to the world. And like you said, it's whether it's radio shows and podcasts, virtual summits, and with open guest presenter seats, giveaways, local meetings, our city directories give up to 1,800 leads in any one market in 4 categories: business, philanthropic and service, all the places you'll touch the consumer, and spiritual. And we'll have 60 markets by about March. We're up to about 45 right now. Not all of them yet are on the site, but if you go to the bottom of the page at Speaker Tunity Cities, you can just put in what market you want and we'll get it to you when it's ready. And then we, as you said, we started adding things that help people to book themselves. And so we added the TEDx directory. We've just added something. Well, I'll tell you about some of the newer things when we get into that later. But it's essentially, this is our mission, is to help you get in front of the audiences you need so you can grow your business and change more lives better and faster. That's what we really do.
To be honest, it's fair to say, listening to you, that you're a bit of a trailblazer. Is that kind of just because the only first woman doing sports and then moving here and then recognizing the market and then, to be honest, providing a cradle to grave service.
Thank you. Well, I've always considered myself a bit of a pioneer, but the way I look at it is I say I follow God's breadcrumbs. When I see a need that's obviously been opened, a void that the universe is telling me, and usually I'm getting those little prompts, and I say, oh, that's what's next. And then I will follow and do that. So yes, I don't really listen to what other people say. I listen to that inner thing that comes in, that wisdom that tells me what to do next.
And I can see the natural progression of the manifestation and using the universe. So yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff you're doing there. I love it. So let's move on to something that strikes you as a quote, whether it be your own or from outside. What's kind of Jackie's thing?
Integrity is everything. And that's really how I try to live my life. And I try to make things right. And sometimes when I was young and I had my big agency, the staff would disagree with things I said, but they always said, we may not like what you decide, but it's always fair. And I've made a life of dealing with people in an honest way. And if I screw up, I'll take responsibility. That's a big one, taking responsibility for whatever is in your realm that you created. And so I take responsibility, try to fix what it is, and have worked very hard to make sure that people know that they can trust me, because I can't really get people to commit to something like a radio podcast tour. It's a 3-month program. It's a lot of work until they trust you. And so the fact that I have a really, really powerful track record of trustability continues to grow my business. That really is and when I deal with people, I try to give more than receive. I mean, if I'm going to be doing a podcast or radio interview or webinar or whatever it is, my goal is to give you so much value that you can't help but want to work with me, because you know that it's your best interest that I'm interested in.
To be honest, I kind of feel that there's nobody who wants it more than you for someone, which is really, really wonderful. And something else you said, if you are willing to take the credit, you also have got to take the blame. So double-edged sword there, isn't it?
Well, if you understand, excuse me, if you understand how the energy works in the world, we're responsible for everything in our lives. And so when you produce something that's not to your best interest, you have to look at it and say, okay, why did that appear in my life? What impact did I have on creating that? Now, if I wasn't happy with that resolution, what's the next one that I do want to produce? And so you really have to, as I call it, manage your personal frequency, which is actually what my 2 books are about. So, sometimes I'm my best student and sometimes I'm not my best student. And I have to take responsibility for that as well.
No, beautifully said. So, and actually hey, it goes back to your integrity, being authentic. So, yeah, you're living your words. So that's very easy. So I wonder if you could tell us, is there something, a setback or some obstacle you've had to overcome?
Oh, yeah. my PR agency, after being hugely successful, collapsed in 1996. I had 3 clients go Chapter 7 in the same month, meaning that bankrupt, and left me holding the tune of debts to $195,000. And so I first had to say, all right, now what am I going to do? And I settled with my creditors, and all but one were very gracious about it. I didn't give them all. I gave them a third of what I owed them, but it was the best I could do. I started to think what would be my next course of action. And I called another agency and I said, I know you're trying to open an LA office. You're going to need phones. You're going to need computers. You're going to need desks. Would you like to buy my assets and give me a job? And they did. And it was how I managed to emerge from that circumstance. It certainly was not pleasant. It was very difficult. I had loved the agency. I had loved the work, but it was time for me to move on. And the reason it did collapse was because my heart wasn't in it any longer. It had become too much of a burden. And that was the universe's gracious way of getting me out of it. But in the course of it, I didn't collapse. I didn't indulge in deep depression. I said, what's next? What is the next step I have to do today to get my ship righted? And I did, and I didn't lose my home. I just moved forward, and then about 2.5 years later, after working for the agency, and I remembered how much I hate working for other people. I've only done that 4 years in my life. I was back on my own again, building what became Conscious Media Relations, and then this speaker Tunity. So you got to look forward. You don't look back. You take this, and you really have to take action as opposed to sit there and be stymied.
Do you want to, at the moment, we are either in a lockdown from the coronavirus or just about to go into a lockdown. And I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of people who may have had their situations change, that to look forward to. So personally, I think that's a very inspiring story. And as you said, it's not easy. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No. But, if you have faith in the universe and keep your frequency high, knowing that you'll find a way, those opportunities arrive.
Amazing. I think being open to the opportunities is really, if you're on the right vibrational frequency, it's then just being open to them.
Well, I love that story that you've probably heard a gazillion times, that there's a big flood and the guy climbs up on his house, and first comes the police, and then comes the fire, and then comes the helicopter, and he's saying that God will rescue me. And then when he gets to the pearly gates, he said, "Why didn't you rescue me?" He says, "I sent 3 messengers."
I always love that. It always makes me laugh.
So, you got to keep your eyes open for opportunities, even if they don't come from where you think they're going to come from. Awesome.
So tell us, what are you working on now? Because you just seem to be plowing a course straight through. So tell me, where are you going now?
Well, we got 3 new products that I'm really excited about. One, if you've never booked yourself for speaking engagements, we're making it really easy. We have a booking system, turnkey, that'll give you everything you need. It gives you a video, it gives you sample pitch letters, it gives you a sample speaker one sheet if you want to do your own. It gives you sample scripts on your follow-up. It gives you tracking documents. It gives you follow-up checklists once you get booked. I mean, it's really comprehensive, and either you can do it or hand it off to a virtual assistant. So that's one of the products. The next thing is called Speaker Tunity Recurring Virtual Networking Update. So one of the ways that people are finding business today is to jump into virtual networking meetings. People are staging these meetings for the sole purpose of connecting people together. Now, the host may actually, but we want to do a little promotion and it's an opportunity to build their list. But by and large, the majority of the time is dedicated to personal introductions so that you can go in there, do your elevator pitch, get people interested in what you do, set up post meetings and start collecting clients. You can't network in a room anymore, but you can do this. And so we have identified 200 of these opportunities, including 40 just for women. And we're making that available to people as well. And the last one that I'm really excited about is called Speaker Tunity Sheets. Now, as a speaker, you really need to have a speaker one sheet that helps you introduce yourself to the speaker booker. And also today, many people are doing podcast sheets to introduce themselves to podcasters. So we've got a new service where you pick the template, you pick your colors, fill in the form, put all the information we request, and we'll turn your speaker one sheet or your podcast sheet back to you in no time. So we're making it easy on everybody. Our mission is to reduce your time to research, reduce your time to coordinate things, reduce your time, your learning skills, your learning curve, so that you just have it all in place and make it easier for yourself.
It's kind of opening the doors where you don't even know there's doors. So to be honest, that's a wonderful, wonderful service. And you're right. So many people now are looking to get into it, but they don't know how. So,
we're just going to deliver you everything you pretty much need. And there's more coming. We're going to continue to grow it. So you can always go to the bottom of the page and get on our list, and we'll keep you posted on what's coming next.
If anyone's watching, that's something which is really important. So wonderful, wonderful, and exciting new things. And I know from speaking to you, more to come. That you don't let the grass grow under your feet.
We see a need and we go try to fill it.
Perfect, perfect. Well, look, this brings me to my second part of the show, where I get to ask you as the genie for my 3 wishes. So are you ready?
You bet.
Here we go. So, number 1, what was the best advice you have ever received?
Well, here's the funny part about it. I'm not sure you can do this today. The best advice that I received in the earlier part of my career was make friends with your banker. Because when you need money, when you need things to get done at the bank, there was somebody you could go to that would really give you a leg up and help you. But today, in the sort of faceless bank situation, that's harder to do. But I still believe there's a woman, my local Bank of America, that I go to, and she's helping me move me into different programs that reduce my costs and all that. So it's worth doing, especially if you are building a business.
And to be honest, the banks are suffering like everyone else. So even now they're going to have to reach out and help businesses, because there's so much pain that they can't just sit there and let the business come to them. So I can see how that advice in the new situation actually mostly has even more of an impact, because everyone's changing. So awesome.
If you can, it's worth doing.
I love this, right? Banker has now gone to the top of my list, which is kind of cool. So my second wish is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Play more. Don't work so hard. Enjoy life along the route better.
There's so many people trying their hard with their head down. Yeah, no, and although you've got a big sort of empire, there's a lot of fun in what you do and passion.
Yeah, there is. I love serving people, and that's really exciting.
Perfect. Where the over delivering continues. So my final wish, I wonder if you could share one personal habit that attributes to your success.
Listening and being compassionate. Listening is really important. And you have to hear what people want, what they need, what their concerns are before you can support them. And when you do support them, you have to put yourself in their shoes and think, okay, what can I say here that's going to be a comfort, that's going to make their pain go away, or at least give them a moment's relief? And I try to do that with everyone. There was a time in my younger days where I was short, busy. I'm always busy, but too busy to be nice, curt, and I paid the price. And as I grew more conscious, as I really began to be a person of spiritual beliefs, I realized it didn't take that much more effort to be nice to people than it did to cut them short. And so now when I write an email, a LinkedIn message, when I'm talking to somebody, I try to be the person that I would want to be to support them rather than just a businesswoman moving on to my next thing.
And to be honest, I mean, you seem very grounded here. So that's kind of a good example of that whole process, and higher vibrational energy. And you now know and live in a completely different vibrational energy.
I grew up a lot thanks to the kind people who were conscious enough to let me know that I needed to be more conscious, and from the great leaders that I read so many of their books, and the people I've been exposed to. And I think that when I wrote my 2 books, it was grace coming through me. And so I can't always live up to my own ideals, but I try to more than ever. Perfect.
Great. Thank you for those great wishes. I've got one other question, which what is one of your favorite books? And and feel free to talk about your own book.
Well, then, if you don't mind, I love my 2 books. The first is The Art of Conscious Creation, How You Can Transform the World. It talks about 25 guiding universal principles that will help you really be more conscious, raise your frequency, and manifest better and more effectively. And each one also talks about what not just the personal corollary to that, but the planetary. And if you take that action to become what that tells you, you're going to impact the planet. And then the second book is called Practical Conscious Creation, Daily Techniques to Manifest Your Desires. And these are 70 individual little articles and 70 little tips that, by just going about your day-to-day life and how you react to things and what you put out into the world, each one of them is going to raise your frequency, that you're a better, faster manifester. It's designed to be fun and easy. And it was the best spiritual book of the year at the International New Age Trade Show the year it came out.
Well, congratulations.
And the first book just went up on Audible a couple of weeks ago, The Art of Conscious Creation. So
fantastic. I'm a big fan of Audible, so that's wonderful news. Amazing stuff. Where can people find you? Because they're going to be sort of hammering down my door. I can hear. So where can people reach you?
Well, there's 2 places. If they're interested in the radio podcast tour, at consciousmediarelations.com. If they're interested in any of the Tunity resources, go to speakertunity.com. And you can always reach me at jackie@speakertunity.com as an email. And there's one more thing, Paul. I have a new Facebook group called Changemaker Collaboration Circle. And it is designed for leaders who are changing the world to come together and cross-promote. I give everybody, you know how most Facebooks say, don't promote. Well, we're exactly the opposite. We want you to come in and tell us who you serve, what you do, and if you have a new book, if you have a new video, if you have a new e-course. There are 35 threads a week, in each designed to keep people knowing about what other people in the community are doing and how they can serve each other. So I invite anybody to come and take advantage of that as well too. So you'll be in contact with me through Changemaker, and also if you want to reach out personally.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we need to get on that Facebook group. So get ready for a wave of new members. So let me see if I can summarize here. A trailblazer who always wants to over deliver, never lets the grass grow under her feet, and spots opportunities and breaks down barriers to places where most probably there were barriers. And Facebook group, which just sounds absolutely delicious in the fact that actually you're absolutely right. You can cross promote and without getting into trouble. So, all great stuff. We know where to find you now. I thank you once again, Jackie. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a wonderful interview. I just enjoyed it so much. Thanks again.
That's very, very kind of you, and I'm very happy. So everyone, you've heard it all here. It's amazing. The value is pouring out of the screen. So I'd love you to go off and release your Genie today. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time.
Well, that's a wrap. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Release the Genie podcast with host Paul Rogers. Be sure to follow Paul on the LinkedIn platform and learn more of Paul's resources at www.takeactionacademy.ca. And until next time, as always, be mindful and be sure to release your Genie. Thanks for listening.